So what is Brene Brown's secret to leadership success? I remember reading my first book from her, Dare to Lead, and a bunch of powerful quotes stood out to me. She told me, to be authentic, we must cultivate the courage to be imperfect and vulnerable. We have to believe that we are fundamentally worthy of love and acceptance just as we are. I've learned that there's no better way to invite more grace, gratitude, and joy into our lives than by mindfully practicing authenticity. But then she hit me with the next one. She said, authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we really are. And that one made me freeze. What does letting go of who I think I'm supposed to be even mean? And how do I even embrace who I really am? Especially when I'm influenced by so many people around me like parents, friends, coworkers, and teachers. Exploring those questions, I found some really powerful things out about myself, including how I was showing up as my inauthentic self, and I didn't even know it, but everybody else did. Which means that this was impacting me, even if I didn't know it. And that's exactly why we wanted to put together today's video for you. If you're ready to find out how this is affecting you, and most importantly, how to let go and step into the best version of yourself, let's go. It's time to redefine leadership. Welcome to Modern Leadership, where we see things differently. Our channel is all about empowering entrepreneurs like you to achieve the next level of success in business and life. We believe that you can create a massive impact in the world without compromising your personal life or family time to do so.
We're committed to providing you with actionable tips and strategies weekly to make that possible. So if you're ready to become a modern leader and make a lasting difference in the world, consider subscribing. Turn on notifications and dive into our community. We want to thank you for being here because the world needs your leadership now more than ever. Let's go.
So she says authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. But what does that mean?
Yeah, I think it means it's just letting go of what other people think you should be like and just really becoming empowered to truly be yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the part that sticks out to me the most is when it says letting go of who you think you're supposed to be. Like we maybe have this ideal belief of like what we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to say, who we're supposed to show up as, and we're kind of like hiding behind the real true us, right? Mm-hmm. We only show up in a way because we're like, well, what are other people going to think of me? Or how can I say this in a way that is like really going to get them to think that I'm, good or better or whatever, as opposed to just being the real me, right? And there's some pieces that are lost there when you're not the real you.
Yeah, and I think it's really fundamentally about wanting people to like us, right? And that's where the people pleasing comes in too. It's like we just want to be loved, really. And if we think we show up as our true selves, people won't love us. All right, so let me ask you this question. Mm-hmm. I'm talking more about authenticity. So can you share kind of like this critical moment in your life or your career when you realize that the importance of letting go of like external expectations to really embrace your true self? And really, how did this realization impact your approach to leadership and family life?
So one of the external expectations that I had was just being a police officer for 20 years. And my initial thought was, I want to be a police officer for 35 years and retire from it. And I realized that I started to, I guess, I don't want to say not be myself, but kind of like think about the expectations that I put on myself and thought, well, this is just what I started. I've spent so much time being a police officer. Why would I want to change and do something else, even if I really do want to do something else? Because what will other people think? And I remember even when I first started to get into business, like I would never talk about it at LAPD, right? Because I was like, well, I don't know what people are going to say. I don't know what they're... And so I was like, I feel like I was living at two different people, right? I was being a police officer by day or a police sergeant by day. And then I was coming home and I was doing coaching and I was helping people, right? And I realized that when I decided that, hey, I want to make the transition out and I don't want to do this, and I started to be more myself, it was just so much less work and stress and brain power. Because like when you would be yourself, all you have to do is be yourself. You don't have to try and pretend and then change facades and then move over here, right? I get to just be my full self. So obviously by being able to do that, I was able to leave my career, but doing it in a way where it's like, I didn't make that decision because of external expectations. I just thought about what I really wanted and was willing to do that. And what's crazy is when I decided to do that, I realized that I could actually bring some of my life coaching into the police career, which is when people started to ask me to speak inside of, different training programs, different departments and things like that. And I was like, man, I really wish that I had been my real authentic self before this, and not be worried about what other people thought.
Yeah. And I think I noticed that too when you started to, get more into life coaching and bring it into your job. And it seemed like it was kind of like you kind of set yourself free because you were able to just like not really care in a sense. Like obviously you would bring it up in like the appropriate times, right? But it seemed like that was something that was holding you back a little bit. And because you are like a great speaker, you're a great motivational speaker, you're someone who can, ask really great questions and like pull things out of people. And you were really bringing that to your career. And it just seemed like you kind of opened up a little bit more and people really can truly see like who you really were, right? And who you really are. And I think I started to notice that as well.
Great. Now I have a hard question for you. It's your turn. And that is like, in today's highly competitive business environment, how do you balance the pressure to conform with the need to remain inauthentic?
Yeah. And I think this, goes to what's really fundamentally the issue here is that we feel like if we are our true selves, people are not going to like us. So we do conform. And we think that you have to be a certain way because otherwise you're going to stick out, right? You're going to be like an outsider and people want to feel like they fit in. And being your authentic self, you feel like you're living outside of that because most people will conform, right? They all, like us, don't want to be, taken out of the tribe, right? So I think that that's something that we have to realize that it's not bad to be our authentic self. Like we truly should live in our most authentic self. And I think that there's this idea that most people are not going to like us if we are the way that we are. And in reality, yeah, some people won't. But that's okay because we're not living for other people. We're living for ourselves.
I actually remember Brene Brown talking about this in Dare to Lead, where she was talking about like, if you're trying to be like someone else, you're just like a duplicate or a copy of someone else. So why would you stand out, right? But when you're your real version of you and you share your own stories and the way your own personality, you're going to have certain people who don't connect with you, but you're going to have certain people who do connect with you because of your story and because you're not like everyone else, right? So in reality, if we want to make a huge impact, not only in leadership, but also in business, we want to ask ourselves like, what does make us different and how can we call out to that so that we can actually attract people who, not everybody's willing to call out to that stuff. Most leaders that I know of, like they don't want to share vulnerability. They think that means weakness, right? But when you can tap into that, you tap into a different level of helping people because it's really just the real you.
Yeah. And it's really kind of touching on or highlighting the most beautiful aspects of ourselves. It's what makes us unique. We're all unique in our own special way. And like you said, we want to be a cookie cutter because we don't want to stand out. We don't want to make a scene. We don't want to bring attention to ourselves. But then when we realize how much value we have, not just in who we are, but like what our stories are, what we've gone through, then it's really about like, who can I tell, right? Like it just opens you up so much more. Okay, so what does this look like on a daily basis, right? So we kind of giving you an overview of what authenticity is and, being vulnerable. But what does this look like on a daily basis? So what would you say are some daily practices or habits that you recommend to cultivate authenticity?
I can come up with a bunch of them, but let me just start off with some of the things that I do, especially in the morning time to remind me of my true self. So whether it's reading like my values, my core values, my affirmations, things that remind me of like my goals and what those goals, once I achieve them, what is it going to get from me, right? Even sometimes visioning of like what it's going to look like when I wake up and I have all those goals, what kind of impact is it going to have on me, my family, and those people I serve. It's kind of like, that's my daily reminder of who the real Mark is. And to make sure that I tap into those core values, all of them, and make sure that I don't like, try to cut corners or try to make it so that I just conform to whoever's in front of me and I don't lean into my own values. So that's one of the things I do. Another thing I do is I make sure that I hang out with other people who share similar values and goals as me, but also who are going to push me to make sure that I stay true to myself, right? So if somebody were to see me being different or being inauthentic, they would call me out and say, what's that? What's going on? having somebody who's willing to do that, but then me also being willing to accept it, I think that's a big part of it. I mean, that's kind of the reason why we have this YouTube channel, right? Because we want to attract certain people who are going to be living in their values of not just business, but also like creating those great connections with family and making sure their health and their fitness is a main priority, right? Not everybody is going to have those values, but when we call out to that, like it kind of pushes people to remind them of, oh yeah, these are the values, right? So every couple of videos we'll have something related to family, and it's like, oh, I remember I'm like, family is an important piece. I needed to dive into this, and I need to be true to myself. So now Brene Brown, she talks a lot about authenticity, but she also talks about vulnerability and being vulnerable. But I want to see if you can share maybe an experience of you being vulnerable and how it's actually played a role in your success and well-being.
Yeah, this has been really hard for me. And I know that Brene Brown is known for talking openly about vulnerability and having it be like a central talking point. And for me, like this was, the connection between authenticity and vulnerability has been hard for me because I was that person who do I need to be, right? In this situation, who do I need to be for this person, and not really truly being myself. But I think the vulnerability piece really helped because it allowed me to kind of share my struggles and my challenges and the things that I have gone through. A lot of like social media has been like a really important piece to this because it's given me a platform to actually share some of these things that I wouldn't normally share with like, people in my life, which sounds weird, right? Because, you want to talk to the people who you really trust, and you would probably only talk about things that you wouldn't feel embarrassed about, right, in public. But social media has kind of made me open up a little bit to kind of share those struggles. A lot of the things that I have shared are things that I have gone through with my kids, and maybe even like with my relationship with you. So being open about maybe the struggles of, being a mom or being a, working mom to a stay-at-home mom and running a business and kind of like the chaos that comes with that, sharing those stories and sharing that, just because I'm here at home and we run a business together, it's not always like rainbows and unicorns. There's still challenges that come up, but in sharing that, I kind of connect with people, and it feels like I'm not afraid to talk about it anymore because yes, it can be scary because someone might come on, and they have come on and like called me out for something, or they've been like really mean in comments or whatever. But for the most part, people have been very receptive to some of the things that I've shared and have really resonated with those stories. So I think that has really helped me a lot in just being open and vulnerable on such like a public place, but it doesn't feel wrong. All right. So my question to you is more along the lines of mental health. So how has authenticity impacted your mental health and well-being?
I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but when you are kind of like feeling like you have to have multiple faces of yourself, it can be physically and mentally exhausting to be able to think of, okay, like who needs to show up today? Like, does it need to be this person or this person or this person, right? Like if I show up as this person, will everybody like me? And it's just so emotionally draining to have to play that game rather than just saying, hey, I'm going to show up as the best version of me and just figure it out from here. So I would say that it reduces stress. In the beginning, it kind of adds stress because you're like, well, what are people going to think? And when you kind of get past that and you're just like, I'm just going to be me, it's not like I'm going to ignore people. I'm still going to be like and accept feedback if it's somebody that I would be willing to accept feedback from. But in reality, like after you release that and you get past it and you realize that being yourself is the best thing that you can do, it's just such a lowering of your mental stress. And when you have less mental stress, you actually can open your brain for many more places for it to focus on that will actually help you move forward rather than being held down. So what's a piece of advice that you can give someone who's maybe struggling with authenticity and they're struggling with embracing who they truly are?
I think we have to just start in understanding who we are. Like, who is it that we want to show up as? And what does that look like for us, right? Because sometimes we don't even know, right? We've spent so many years with like this facade, right? Or like thinking that you have to be a certain way in order for other people to accept you. And I think it's really about just sitting down and realizing like who it is that you truly are, like defining that for yourself. And then you can start to embrace that and start to live that, because it's not like a switch where you're going to automatically just be yourself. It takes time. It's a process. So just defining that for yourself, I think, is the best advice I could give.
Yeah, I what kind of comes up for me as you're saying that is like focusing on identifying your core values or what like really makes you tick. Because I feel like that is the fundamental thing about us that like makes us unique, right? So being able to identify those core values and use those to kind of like fuel you in terms of this is my direction, this is my North Star, and then just leaning into those so that you can explore your true authentic self. And a part of that includes maybe reading Brené's books. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, we actually have a free business leadership book club where we dive into books just like Dare to Lead, and we share them with the team. We have a community inside of our app where we can check in daily, and we have live streams here that we break down the book for everybody on the team who maybe doesn't want to read it all, but wants to be able to come here and consume the most important aspects of it. Now, if you're not a part of the book club and you're interested, we'll leave you the link inside of the description, but right now it's completely free for you to join, and definitely something that will help you explore your real authentic self. We want to thank you for being here and being willing to have these difficult conversations with us. You're exactly who the world needs right now. We appreciate you for leaning in, and keep leading from the front, leaders. Bye.